Good evening and thanks for joining us. Tonight, the country is facing two very different but deeply connected challenges, one from the skies above and another unfolding on the streets below. On one hand, a massive storm system is bearing down on the United States, threatening to impact nearly 250 million Americans across 40 states. On the other, a deadly encounter in Minneapolis has once again put immigration enforcement, public safety, and federal authority at the center of a national debate. Before we go any further, if you value clear, fact-based reporting that goes beyond the sound bites, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss important updates like this.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. There are two different things that I'd like to discuss with you tonight. The first one being a storm that is barreling down on our country and will be impacting approximately 250 million Americans in 40 different states. We've been working together here at the FEMA headquarters and have opened our National Response Coordination Center and are working with local and state authorities to make sure that we're getting individuals and communities pre-deployed resources that they may need and also preparing them for the upcoming days, which will significantly impact them and their citizens. The Trump administration and FEMA are working closely with them to get them information, to get them resources, and to help them be prepared and well equipped for the road ahead as we go through this next week. But before I take any questions and give more details on the storm and its impact, I do want to address the tragic situation that we saw in Minneapolis today that unfolded on the streets. It occurred with DHS law enforcement as they carried out their lawful duties to keep Americans safe in the threat of criminal illegal aliens in this country. At 9:05 a.m. Central Time, the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement officials and officers were conducting targeted operations in Minneapolis against an illegal alien whose criminal history included domestic assault with intentionally inflicting bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license. An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 magazines with ammunition in them that held dozens of rounds. He also had no ID. This looks like a situation where an individual arrived at this scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. About hundreds of protesters then showed up at the scene. They began to obstruct and to assault law enforcement officers. We saw objects being thrown at them, including ice and other objects, and a rampant assault began, and even an HSI officer agent's finger was bitten off. Crowd control measures were deployed to bring safety to the public and to law enforcement at the scene. And once again, I want to remind everybody that this situation and this tragedy did not have to happen.
Speaking from FEMA headquarters, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem opened her remarks by focusing on the storm, emphasizing the scale and urgency of what's coming. FEMA has activated its National Response Coordination Center, a move that signals a high level of federal concern. This center acts as the nerve hub during major disasters, coordinating everything from emergency supplies to search and rescue teams. According to Noem, resources are already being pre-deployed to vulnerable communities, which is a critical step because once storms of this magnitude hit, response time can mean the difference between safety and catastrophe. The Trump administration, working alongside state and local authorities, says the goal is preparation, not reaction. If this system performs as intended, communities should see faster aid delivery and clearer communication in the days ahead. If staying informed about disasters and government response matters to you, now is a good time to subscribe so you stay ahead of the story as it develops. But before taking questions on the storm, Noem shifted to what she described as a tragic and dangerous situation that unfolded earlier in Minneapolis, and this is where the briefing took a sharper turn. At approximately 9:05 a.m. Central Time, DHS law enforcement officers were conducting what officials called a targeted operation against an undocumented immigrant with a documented criminal history. That history, according to DHS, included domestic assault involving bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license. During the operation, an individual reportedly approached U.S. Border Patrol officers while armed with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. That single detail is critical because it reframes the encounter from a routine immigration action into a high-risk law enforcement situation. What viewers may not immediately realize is how rare and tense these moments are. Federal immigration officers are trained for arrests, but when firearms enter the picture, the situation escalates instantly. Noem emphasized that the officers were carrying out lawful duties, framing the incident within the broader mission of DHS to address what the administration describes as threats posed by criminal illegal aliens. This language is deliberate, and it signals how the administration wants the public to understand the event, not as an isolated tragedy, but as part of a larger enforcement strategy tied to national security and public safety. At the same time, incidents like this raise complex questions. How do federal agencies balance aggressive enforcement with community trust? What safeguards exist to prevent violence? And how transparent will the investigation be moving forward? These are questions that will not be answered in a single press briefing, but they are questions the public deserves clarity on. As more facts emerge, scrutiny will only intensify, especially in a city like Minneapolis, with a long and painful history of police-involved incidents. This moment underscores something larger. The federal government is being tested on multiple fronts at once: disaster readiness, immigration enforcement, and public confidence in institutions. How effectively leaders communicate, coordinate, and follow through will shape not only immediate outcomes, but long-term trust. We'll continue to track both the storm and the fallout from today's incident closely. If you want ongoing analysis that connects the dots and explains what officials are not always saying out loud, subscribe to the channel and stay with us.